and welcome to another episode of Kickstart Connections. I am your host, Lucinda Underwood. Joining me in the studio today is a repeat guest, Jason Davis of Ralli Marketing. Jason, welcome. So great to see you again.
Yeah, thanks for having me back.
And we were just looking, it's been over a year since you were in before, which is crazy.
Time's flying.
Absolutely, absolutely. But you're here to talk about something different today.
That's right.
Yes, last time we were talking about Ralli, we had a great episode, but you're working on something kind of special, and we got in touch, and I asked you to come on and talk about it because I think it's such a great thing. So we're talking about the Mindset Project that you're currently working on. So why don't you just start by telling you what it is?
Sure. So the Mindset Project, as it exists today, is a spin-off to something that happened in 2017. So I can't take credit for the original one. Mike Davini of Work Insights, a longtime mentor, friend of mine now. It was his brainchild that he did a study in 2017 that looked at the mindset of entrepreneurs here in Nova Scotia and found some really interesting data points. That kind of came out, and then nothing happened with it. COVID came in and everything else from that. And I guess over the last year and a half, Mike and I have continued to chat, and running another study of that was always of interest to his, to see what's changed since 2017, because the ecosystem for entrepreneurs has changed quite a bit since then. And he was very fascinated to know, like, how have those numbers been affected from everything that we've experienced over the last number of years. He was looking for a partner to partner with him on it. And I was just like, why don't we partner? Like, why doesn't Ralli provide that for you? And we started talking about what that would look like. So then we launched maybe a month ago or so the follow-up study to the one in 2017. So that's where we're at. And I guess the higher level purpose is to look at the mindset of entrepreneurs here in Nova Scotia. And some of the two biggest takeaways, I think, from 2017 that he found was, I think it's 63%, don't quote me on the numbers exactly, but 63% of entrepreneurs I think 68 actually, suffer from some form of mental health issue.
Oh, wow.
Here in Nova Scotia. And there's a 31% depression rate amongst entrepreneurs here in Nova Scotia, which is 4 times higher than the average population. And then the other one was that 72% of business owners here in Nova Scotia aren't getting what they want from their business. So these were the findings from 2017, and has what, I'm passionate about driving entrepreneurship here in Nova Scotia. So I think this is a very key element to figuring out what the ecosystem looks like for entrepreneurs here with regards to their mindset and what they're seeing and feeling and experiencing, so that we can try to create a better landscape for them and a better ecosystem for entrepreneurs to operate within.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's a fascinating topic. And there's a few things that you kind of said there, because I've got to imagine too, if the ecosystem, as you say, isn't kind of what it should be, that's probably holding people back from going into entrepreneurship in the first place. Do you think?
Yeah. So I'm a nerd when it comes to this stuff. And I love numbers, because I think numbers take opinions out of it. It's not my opinion of whether we're good or bad for entrepreneurs here in Nova Scotia. But I can tell you that in 2022, Stats Canada released some numbers and showed that Nova Scotia has the worst ratio in Canada of any province for business owners to population.
Wow.
The worst in Canada. PEI has the best, by the way. So
that's interesting.
Super interesting. So you can't say that we're a small province on the East Coast. That argument's out the window. Mm-hmm. So you take that number, knowing that we're starting from the worst province in Canada as it relates to the number of entrepreneurs we have to our population. And then you add into this idea that almost 3/4 of them aren't getting what they want from their business. So if we're looking to grow the number of entrepreneurs we have, because we need to, because the road we're on is not sustainable, the best way to do that, I believe, is from within, from like entrepreneurs inspiring other entrepreneurs and 100%. Recruiting other people, motivating other people to start their own businesses. That's not going to happen if 3/4 feel the way they do. name me an industry where if you offered a product and 3/4 of your customers didn't like what they got from their product, like, you're not going to be around for very long.
Right.
That's what we are doing here
Yeah.
for entrepreneurs, and that has to change.
Yeah.
So again, going back to the mindset project, for me, that's my passion is, I always say, like, developing the economy of Nova Scotia through entrepreneurship. That's what I want to do. And I think the best way to do that is first to figure out, like, why we are here and how we can fix that.
Right. Well, you have to start at that foundational level, right? I mean, if there's something in the foundation that is not encouraging this or really kind of making it as it should be or presenting challenges, then absolutely that you need to start there so you can really understand what the issues are. I mean, did anything come out of the 2017 study that kind of gave you a direction of, or maybe some predictions of, okay, what might be kind of the cause or the issue of this?
Yeah, so I think I was just chatting with Mike late last week, actually, and he secretly peeked at some of the data coming in from this study. So not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but I think there's a number of things happening. Running a business is really hard to begin with. So
it's not easy.
It's not easy. So you're starting from that place, and then when you feel isolated, both amongst other entrepreneurs, but also from community. And you feel like the supports aren't there for you, it starts to feel like a toll that you can't take. I will say that it appears that entrepreneurs are feeling more anxious about the future. And I think COVID is still having an effect longer than people thought in the entrepreneurship community. So I think I'm not going to claim to have any answers, but I think there is a combination of more connection amongst the communities of business owners and more support. And I'm not going to get into any political stuff, but like all forms of government should be prioritizing this as something they should be trying to find solutions for.
Right.
So I would hope that all three levels of government, not to be self-serving, but like this report should be on the table of the three levels of government when it comes out in the fall, of what can we be doing to help support entrepreneurs here in Nova Scotia.
100%. I mean, small business is such an important part of the economy, right? So absolutely, it needs to be given the tools to thrive. A few things you said there, and I mean, you're speaking my language, as you know. I mean, the whole reason I started Kickstart Connections originally was to kind of provide a place to connect entrepreneurs. But it was also from a personal standpoint as well. I had just launched my first ever business by myself. No idea what I was doing. Questioning myself left, right, and center, right? That self-doubt that just creeps in and you're like, am I crazy for doing this? And so just to be able to have a way to meet other people that are experiencing the same things, and you just kind of create that kind of tribe, I guess, of, so you can cheer each other on and give each other support.
Well, where else can you do it? Because you many owners feel like they can't do it with their staff.
Right.
Sometimes it involves their staff. So they feel like they can't share everything they're feeling there. You may have a spouse at home that you can share stuff with, but there, I learned this early on in my career, was that I became more and more of I think we talked about last time, but this idea of being like a 2IC or a second in command, like this support to that person in the number one seat, because it is very lonely and you do feel very isolated in there. So I think, that connection is hugely important. And we've kind of lost it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's, and again, connection goes beyond going to networking events and things like that, right? I mean, that's great. One thing I did, as soon as I started my business, I became a member of the Chamber of Commerce and I got quite involved with them because that was just a great way to be around other people and, make some connections, but it has to go deeper than that.
Yeah. I think they both serve their place, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Like you would have received value from
100%.
those relationships that you had in that sense. But I say to people sometimes, like, if something blows up in your business tomorrow, like who's your first people to call? Like who can you call when
My
something
mom.
is that bad?
Yeah.
And can they relate to you?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of we're becoming more and more isolated. And we talked about before jumping on here the time component. Like owners are very busy. Like they don't have enough time to do all the things they want to do in their own business, let alone find time for building connection and these other things. So it's hard.
Yeah. And I mean, and again, even just from a mental health aspect as well. I mean, obviously that is, that's a fundamental part of this study. That's another point. It's like when you're so busy trying to work in your business, on your business, look to the future, maintain all these things, it's very easy for the self-care to slip.
Yes.
I've found that myself, right?
So it's only anecdotal, but I've talked to more owners in the last few years that are actively choosing to leave the entrepreneurship space and just like, I'm just going to get a job. Of just like, I'm going to sell, I'm going to get out, and I'm going to move on, and I just need a job for a little bit. Or they're actively choosing to, I could grow, but to what would that bring from a stress, anxiety perspective? And like, is that worth it? And I'm seeing more and more entrepreneurs either leave entirely or choose to not grow when they could for what that would bring in terms of stress. And if you are where you are and you're happy, then like great. But I wanted to see like how can we change the landscape so that person who genuinely wants to run their own business doesn't feel like they have to get out, or somebody who genuinely wants to grow their business doesn't feel like they can't because of what that's going to mean of the load that they would have to take on.
Right. And that's where the support comes in, right? It's, and I mean, I can relate, we were talking beforehand, I can relate to that. Absolutely. I am at a moment in my business now where I can pursue growth, but I'm also then weighing up, okay, what is it going to take for me to do that? Can I do it on my own? Do I want to do it on my own? Do I want to bring on help? It's a tricky one. It really is.
And if the answer is no, I don't, from a genuine perspective, then I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Like I'm genuinely happy for you and those people that are in the same boat. But again, if the answer is no, I don't want to do this because of things that we could change in our culture of entrepreneurship in this province that could make your ecosystem better, then like we have to make those changes because, if you look at the employment rates in the private sector, business owner, private sector, and public sector, over the, especially since COVID, it has shifted dramatically towards the public sector. And so we have all these numbers yelling at us that the road we're on is not sustainable. We need more employment in the private sector. We need more entrepreneurship. And yet the entrepreneurs we do have aren't happy with what they're getting. And that has to change.
Yeah. Yeah. So you said, the study is running until the fall. Yeah.
So our hope is to gather data throughout the summer. At some point during the summer, hopefully we reach the numbers we're looking for, and then we'll start analyzing the data and release the report sometime this fall.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And how's it going so far? You're getting lots of responses on your survey?
Yeah, it's been great. I made a post a couple weeks before this study launched about this topic, and not that I'm a viral person on social media by any stretch, but for me the feedback I got was great, and that was just like the nail in the coffin for me of just like this is the right topic. So yes, we're getting survey responses, but the coolest thing for me are things like this. You reaching out, being like, I believe in this topic.
Absolutely.
This is very good. Let's talk more about it. Can I help? The number of business owners that have reached out saying like either this is great, I feel it, or I have a way to help. Can I help? Has been really great. So it shows, like, it gives me hope that like there are people out there that want to help this too. So the feedback's been great so far.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think, it is such an important topic. And to be able to, and like you said, maybe with the first study, the timing wasn't perfect because of COVID happening and those kind of things that maybe, some of the work that could have been done off the back of that didn't get focused. Hopefully this time,
Yeah.
it can lead to some real change.
I would say, and I'm not speaking for Mike because he has said this to me. The first study in 2017 was a study. It was a study and a report, and that was the extent of it. And I think one of the things he recognized, hindsight looking back, was like there was more that could have come of it, as instead of just a report. And that's our hope this time. Of like, yes, there'll be a report, and there will be a number of great insights in it, I'm sure. But like that can't be where it stops. Like it has to go to policymakers and to the entrepreneurship themselves, and figure out how do we take what we learned in this and actually do something, create programs, create initiatives that make our culture better for entrepreneurs.
Right. No, 100%. And I mean, and hopefully, you know, like you say, the reports will almost give some kind of roadmap, or at least highlight some areas that then will then lead to those discussions, you know, around the tables that can make change.
And I think the other thing I hope comes of this is just like more of an openness to discuss it. That was one of the other things that came out of 2017. And I forget the exact numbers, but it's a very small percentage of entrepreneurs who are experiencing mental health issues who feel like they can speak about it. And that is another thing that I hope will change too. Not only do I want to help so that we don't have such a high percent, but inevitably we will have some that still have mental health issues. How do we make an ecosystem where they can feel like they can seek help and talk about it openly without worrying about what their staff will think, what their customers and clients will think, what investors will think? Like there's a number of reasons why entrepreneurs feel like they can't talk about it right now.
Yeah.
And hopefully that can change.
Yeah, I think it's that pressure of perception, isn't it? Of, you know, it's not easy to be vulnerable anywhere in life, but when you are the business owner, you are the boss, you are the face of the company, there's a lot of pressure to be the strong one.
100%.
Right?
And that really hit home. COVID for me was the first thing, I think for a lot of people of our generation, was like the first thing like that where we experienced that was transcended industries, and like it was everywhere, obviously. And yeah, I think that in a different way, collectively, I saw business owners across the board struggling with this thing of like, I am not okay.
Yeah.
But for my staff and for my customers and for my family and for all the people around me, like I feel like I have to be okay or present this image that I am okay. And that was hard. The number of stories I've heard from business owners, context changes every time. But this story of I was good, this happened, and now I'm not good anymore.
Yeah.
Things hit me differently now, and I struggle more now. And like that, I've heard that storyline countless times in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And I think it speaks to how many of us have gotten impacted.
Yeah. And I mean, and you got to think about it. I mean, like you say, COVID, we've never experienced anything like that before. And it showed us that the world can change in a second, right? You know, a stable business can become unstable overnight. Even for people that are employed, you know, even for folks with jobs. So yeah, I think it's shaken us for sure. But I agree with everything you were saying there, and I think it's so important to have an environment where people can talk about these things. I mean, personally, I've been through burnout before. That was actually my reason of starting a business in the first place. But then that's also always something in the back of my mind of, okay, I need to make sure that never happens again. Because it's one thing that happening when you have a job, right? You can take a bit of time off work. You've got some support around you than when you're a business owner, right? So it's, I think it's so important to really kind of put attention on this of, this is normal to feel this way, right? And you're not going to be the only one feeling this way. I think that is huge.
I think like one thing I think is worth pointing out is like, I think COVID sped this up, escalated it probably based on the early numbers of the data. It appears like it has. But these things were happening before too, right? Like I don't want to give COVID entire credit for creating this. The study that came out in 2017 showed that like even before COVID, entrepreneurs were struggling with their mental health. They weren't getting what they wanted out of their business. did COVID make it worse? Yes, or it's appearing that it will. We'll see what the final report says, but yeah, like these things have been going on for a long time, and hopefully COVID hindsight, when we look back 20 years, will be like, well, it made it worse, but at least that was the trigger for us to really take this seriously and try to fix it.
Yeah, and I think that's always the way to look at things, right? It's like, yeah, sometimes things come along in life that just throw everything off, but there's always a lesson in there, right? Mm-hmm. There's always some way to learn and grow. So that leads me to a big question, which I'm sure people are wondering, listening, as we've been talking about this project and all the great things you're doing through this study. How can local entrepreneurs get involved? How can they support this project?
Yeah, so I think there's 3 things. Can I have 3 things?
You can have as many things as you want, Jason.
I'm taking 3
yes.
things. One, if you're a business owner in Nova Scotia, fill out the survey. Just simple as that. We have a website. I'll make sure it gets shared with this podcast, but go to the site, fill the survey. It takes 15 minutes. It would help immensely. Secondly would be if you have access to business owners and entrepreneurs like yourself, you have some sort of platform, whether it's an emailing list, a social media page, you have a lot of friends that are entrepreneurs. I don't care. But if you have access to them and you can help get this in front of them, that would be hugely helpful. And then I guess thirdly, would just selfishly for me would be if you feel like you are one of those 72% that aren't getting what they want from their business, like send me a message. I want to, if there's a way I can help, I want to help. So if you're an entrepreneur, fill out the survey. If you can help get this in front of more entrepreneurs, that'd be fantastic. And then reach out and send me a message if you're one of those ones that not getting what they want. That would be how people could help right now. And then there'll be another reach out in the fall of we will need a coming to arms of the entrepreneurship community to help push these findings forward. I'm not naive that it's going to be easy. And I do anticipate the change being hard. There's an interesting book out called Looking for Bootstraps. It's very dry and boring, but I find it exceptionally fascinating. But it's a historical economic stating of how we got to where we are in Atlantic Canada. So this idea that at one point in history, the 2 economic hubs globally were the western coast of Europe and the eastern coast of the U.S. And Atlantic Canada geographically was positioned perfectly to take advantage of that. And we didn't. It skipped over us. And ever since then, we've been an area of Canada that has kind of looked to government for help in many ways. And my hope is that when this study comes out, we can have entrepreneurs step up. Because, yes, government needs to be a part of this, as I said, but we need the entrepreneurship community to step up and help push this stuff forward too. There's a lot of things we can do that can help. So that will be, I guess, my 4th. I'll take another one in the fall when this comes out. When you read the report, if there's things that you feel like you can do to contribute to help with this, we're going to need all the help we can get at that point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's something that the community needs to rally around for sure.
Yeah.
I'm thinking already we'll have you back on in the fall once you've got the results too.
Yes, I'll bring the report in, and
that would be a great discussion once we have that report to really kind of see, okay, so what do we do with this now?
Yeah,
right?
and again, like early numbers, but Mike sent me an email on Friday just with what he's seeing coming in, and it appears early on like anxiety levels are up, isolation feelings are up, and fear of the future is up. So those aren't necessarily good things. But again, like we have to know the data to know what we do about it.
To have that starting point. Yeah. I have to say as well, I mean, obviously I have completed the survey myself, and actually the process of completing the survey is quite eye-opening.
I've heard from a couple people who have said that.
Yeah.
Like it really makes you think about some of these things. Because oftentimes I talk about ownership as like the lobster in the boiling water. Maybe it's the frog, but you put it in the water and you slowly heat up the water. A lot of times entrepreneurship is like that. And sometimes it takes something like this to sit down and answer these questions and be like, oh man, like I didn't realize this was as much of a thing as it was. And maybe it was something I wasn't aware of. That was my story. Like I was one of those that like, I didn't I didn't experience anything related to the normal stress and anxiety, but nothing normal. And I didn't have the vocabulary for a time, but I went through a stretch for like a year and a half where now looking back, it was like panic attacks that I was experiencing. And that was really eye-opening for me personally, of someone who identified as like being good in that department to now like, oh shit, like this is hitting me differently. And it was that of just like, I just wasn't paying attention enough to what was going on around me. And I was just so much like doing the thing that I didn't pick my head up long enough to look around and be like, am I okay?
Right.
That self-care that you talked about earlier just like wasn't there. So
it's one of the easiest things to go, I think, when you are busy and you have this, you're on this mission, right? Because again, you know, when we work for ourselves, we take our work on a whole new level, I think.
It becomes part of your identity.
Yeah,
for a lot
absolutely.
of people. Yeah,
absolutely. And I mean, I was kind of like that with my career as well. Learned a big lesson with the burnout because same thing, you know, I started suffering from panic attacks and I didn't know what was going on, right? And it's, you know, once you've been through that, you learn that you can either pay attention to these kind of things and you can make yourself take a step back and you can assess yourself and your own health, or at some point your body will force you to stop.
Yeah.
Right? That's really kind of the two options. And I definitely recommend getting ahead of it. Yeah.
Well, and I said this to you in our email exchange coming in here, like I don't classify myself as a mental health advocate. Like, not that I don't support it, obviously, but like my mission, like I said, economically developing Nova Scotia entrepreneurship, that's not going to happen if we have entrepreneurs burning themselves out and leaving the industry in general. So yeah, it comes back to that. We need to find a way to like help people like you and everyone else like not experience that burnout and that those mental health issues that they're experiencing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So yes, I will add the website information, I'll add your LinkedIn page, those kind of things into the show notes. So as Jason said, please, if you can take the time to go and fill out the survey on the website, share this project with your friends and your contacts. You know, let's really try and bring the community together as much as possible. And then we can look forward to hearing the report in the fall, right? Yeah. I'm excited to hear kind of what comes out of this. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But Jason, thank you so much for coming in. It's always great to chat with you.
No, this is great. It really helps. Good. It really helps the cause. Yeah.
Yeah, good. No, I'm happy we can give you that platform.
Cool.
Perfect. All right. So that's all we have for today. But don't forget, if you like this episode, please don't forget to rate, review, share, and subscribe. And we will see you next time. Thank you.